then I was really looking for a way to kind of make us more efficient as a company. Like I saw an opportunity to bridge just wide technological gap between the office and the field where we're duplicating efforts and processes across so many levels. And I'm like, there's got to be a way to do this, better and faster. So
how did you know that though? Were you in the field? I mean, you were still in the field at that time. So how do you know what was happening in the office?
Well, I just knew because the way that we communicated, like this is the days before Procore and like some of those Autodesk, some of those other platforms, and even Bluebeam that was just now launching into the space as well. But, everything was centrally located on a server within our office, but then it was pushed to everybody in the field via email. And then every superintendent is creating their own job folder structure and their own way of doing things. I'm like, this has to be better. So that was right when, SharePoint or OneDrive was starting to evolve. There was a cloud-based
repository back then.
Yeah. And so then I started to, there was a project that ended up running called Headquarters. And I became close with their like IT guy as we're trying to get this set up because they're a holding company over like 5 different companies. And I'm like seeing how like the challenges that he has and he's trying to bridge those gaps with communication, everything in the way, the transmission of information and stuff. So I just spent a lot of time like talking with him, and then he kind of showed me some things, and that's when I said, all right, that's the light bulb went off. I'm like, okay, we just need to get our stuff onto SharePoint, create one like centralized folder. So when the admin or the PM is updating the document or dropping it in there,
everybody has access.
We already have it instead of me getting 30 submittal emails in a day. And then like, at 5 o'clock now that everybody's left the job, now let me go sit there and like review all of my submittals and catalog them. And, that all takes, brain work, which is, I'm lacking. So I was trying to find easy ways to do it. So that was kind of one of the next big steps in the evolution of us was kind of bridging that gap and making it very seamless, without having to spend the big dollars that you spend with like Procore and like some of these other things that are out there now.
When did you become too cool for the field and started being an office guy? Were you building data centers then, or were you also, because I know that in between building data center projects, you probably had to go build hospitals or other things too, right? I mean, you guys were doing a lot of stuff downtown that were not data center related, right?
Yeah. Those were like the in-between projects, in-between data center assignments. Yeah. It was right around like the last 6 months of last year when the general superintendent was getting ready to retire. And that's when they'd kind of announced, director of field operations. And then we provided some overlap. So yeah, basically it's like wrap up the last project that you're on the field and like no more field assignments, if you will. So
they kind of replaced the general super with the director of operations?
Yeah, director of field operations.
Interesting. Okay. That's okay. I've seen it before. So that's what you rolled into.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Okay. So that is more in the office for you.
Yes. Yeah, in the office, because then it gave me time while he was still there. It was basically I started like creating a repository of like all of our field forms and like automating all of our forms. Like, so I was writing all those and actually creating all the different,
standardized templates.
Yes, of everything. And, that was 6 months of just think tank work of, figuring that stuff out, doing research. I'm not a developer.
Were you attending trade shows back in those days?
As far as like
industry, not construction, but data center.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Like AFCOM 7x24. Yeah. And then I forget which job came up next that was just needed, that we knew if it was a data center project came to us that I would be the one that would be heavily involved in it. I don't recall which one it was, but then around that time it was like, okay, now the roles kind of shifted a little bit more into like, VP and director of, field operations.
What's the difference?
Well, just that VP side of things, I guess it's just in the market, it just let the external community know that, I can do this other side of the business. Yeah, I have this piece that I oversee and responsible for, but I can also be, you're the face-to-face with the client to help deliver their project, go buy out their project and do whatever it needs to be. So I think it was more of an external thing that really helped the community understand what the role was or, what it was doing.
It makes sense. Were you able to see things that you were doing in other construction projects that were not data center related, means and methods that you could adopt and then kind of draw back into the data center industry a little bit or introduce because we get really siloed in our data center space now. Don't you agree?
Yeah. I mean, on the new construction side, that's what, so when you look at the types of superintendents, like in the last organization, you had interiors, and I'm not trying to discredit the how difficult some of the interiors projects can be, because there's some of them that are just extremely difficult. But that's the first place you can start. You can do interiors, then you can kind of get exposed to like new construction. Right now, you're dealing with civil structural stuff that you hadn't seen. So you conquered interiors. Now you got civil structural. Then you jump into data centers. Well, I did it like the reverse. I got exposed to new construction, conquering like civil, structural, and interiors. Right, that comes part of a new building that we're building, and then to data centers. And then the interiors was the last project that I ever tackled.
Yeah, but interiors would be like, interiors for us on the data center side is different than interiors on a regular construction side.
Yeah, for sure.
And in most cases now, it's a multi-tenant environment where you're on a shared infrastructure backplane. And when you're on the TI side, that's more of the brain surgery, the open heart surgery, in my opinion. I always felt like the reason why I always said Chicago was hard to build is because everything in Chicago's been built. They're not opening up more parks and fields, right? So like everything's a brownfield. Everything is a retrofit of something, right?
Second generation build, yeah.
And the people that had shit there, they don't even know it's there sometimes, right? So I mean, greenfields I always thought was like the easiest, where I'm like, you got to start over with a brand new slate,
yeah,
where no
awesome.
Yeah, it's easy. Like get some pressure underneath your belt where you're like, man, we're reading these drawings. We're 90% confident in these drawings. But how many times, I mean, I've had electricians working on programs for me before where they've tapped into a ground rod that was unmarked on their own drawings, and they were the company that did the project prior to that. You know what I'm saying? So like these drawings that when you're working on buildings that are, how old are some of the buildings in Chicago that you're going to work on, right? 350 Cermax, probably, how old is that building alone, right?
Yeah, decades.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like, the person that probably built the last project's not there now, right? But hopefully their drawings were up to date on their as-builds, right? So it's just a more stressful environment, I think, to build in, right? Especially when you're doing data centers, because it's like if you take down an office space in the middle of a TI improvement, yeah, some people are probably going to bitch and moan a little bit, but I get yelled at all the time. But when you take down somebody's load, that's a completely different monster. That's a career limiting move, right?
Yep.
Resume writers, they call those ones. So when you were going, you walked us through how you got into the office, and that was through this new director of field operations role, which makes a ton of sense. And then you got into the VP side where you're like, okay, well, look, I'm sprecking the business. I'm innovating because we're in the business of developing a home for innovation. And now you're using innovation as the vehicle or the tool to do that, right? Mm-hmm. You're more specializing now in data centers, it sounds like. You're heading some of the trade shows, learning how to network, learning what tools are using in this space. Were you introducing things to this industry that, were there things that you thought you had an advantage on? Because like, hey man, we learned how to do this while building hospitals, and now I'm doing this and I'm going to bring that as an advantage. I mean, what were you seeing any advantages back and forth?
I don't know that I could say that. I mean, a lot of the means and methods, that's where I was getting to, is with some of the new construction stuff, because building a new greenfield data center, right? Like you have data center builders, but none of them are civil structural architectural builders, right? That's why you see project teams kind of siloed, where you have a CSA group and then you have an MEPFP group, because usually those groups aren't like kind of cross-trained in both disciplines. So that's one of for a personal advantage for me, yes, because I can speak the language of the civil, structural, architectural, and the mechanical, electrical, and fire protection, plumbing systems as well. So that was like one advantage for me.
Tell me some of the challenges politically up in Chicago, as it's a fairly dense market for GCs. Would you agree? I'm talking about data center builders, not just GCs in general. Not everybody up there can build data centers.
No, there's like, I would say four or five.
Okay, so maybe my words. There's not a lot. There's not. I guess it wasn't a very saturated group of people that could build up there, right? There's 3 are the ones that I really know. Then there's a couple that have built something. Doesn't mean they're proficient with it, right? Because the way we build today is different than what we were doing a year ago. Yep. Imagine how much more different it'll be in a year from now, right? Yeah. Some groups just aren't innovating like that. They're really not designed for that. They're designed for cookie cut shit. And if you do things that don't iterate like that, then it's just not competitive for them.
Well, I mean, think about what Walsh did, right? Walsh took down, Chicago 5, which is one of Microsoft's projects out in Hoffman Estates, and that was their first data center project, I believe, maybe second.
Really?
So that Walsh wasn't known as a data center builder, and they took down, $130 million-ish
What influences those programs? The ability to control the labor market or more or something? What is that? Because there's some other big shops, like Pepper's huge up there too, right? There's some other big shops.
Yeah, they're bigger. Yeah, they're not like as big as Walsh, but yeah, they're big. In terms of what do you mean? What influences?
Well, how do you go from not building shit and having a resume to do it to now you're competing against groups that can and have a better resume for it, and they can still pick up work in a market that's heavily competitive like Chicago is?
Well, I mean, all these groups are Chicago-based groups, so it's easy for them in Chicago.
But some don't specialize in building data centers. Is there things that can do it?
It took a client that was willing to take a chance on a different
Their GC and fee was less. I don't know. That's what I'm asking. Like
I don't know if they were the low bid, but they were the right bid.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Whatever the risk was. Yeah. That's what I'm always trying to figure out. Yeah. I'm really disappointed that you don't answer to that. I don't even know what you do here. So
I'm not falling into your traps.
So listen, so you walk me into like how long you were doing that until you became a partner. What was that process like? Because you said you made partner within 11 years.
It was somewhere around there. Yeah, I think by the time when I'd made VP, that was when I got my first part of the equity of the company I bought in. So. Was that part of the plan, part of the goal all along? Mm-hmm. You wanted to stay there long enough to get to that level?
Yeah. And then was there a model that you also saw with like partners, because it's typically a succession planning model. Mm-hmm. As soon as people get there, they're like, okay, cool, you're going to do this. And then you sunset at this. Yeah. Was that something that you were buying into too, that sunset?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And is the goal then you always knew like, hey, I'm going to go start my own GC?
I don't know if that was always the goal. Even like when you and I talked, back on whatever sunny day it was when I was on the golf course and you're bothering me.
All you were doing was golfing. I was like, dude, you're not a professional golfer anymore. I've seen you do it. You're not that good. So
this is true. This is true. No, I needed to do something, and that's besides golf.
Yeah, no shit. I was the one that was telling you that for months, I think. I'm like, why are you so lazy? You're like, I'm going to take the whole summer. I'm going to take 3 more months off. And I was like, no, you're not. Yeah. We have shit to build.
Yeah.
It takes time though, man. It's hard to build a business, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's learned a lot. It's in itself is humbling,
But let's go back before we get to that, because I'll scratch the paint and pressure test you pretty hard on that part. That's easy. But for those that are listening, anybody, if Rob could do it, anybody can do it, right? But I'm saying you don't have to. You had a really successful career. How long were you there for? 20 years?
Maybe 18, 17, okay. 18, somewhere around there.
So you were there for, that's a long time to be at one spot, right? So you made it to the top of the rank, it's basically, right? Mm-hmm. You were an EVP before you left?
Yeah.
Okay. So walk me through the VP director role and then how you evolved and iterated from that. And then you kind of got to the point where the volume and velocity that you guys were trucking at allowed you to really only do data centers at that point. It wasn't like in-betweens. It seemed like you guys were just doing enough of them that was your dedication.
On our side, that was, we realized quickly that if we were going to be serious about it,
dedicate.
We need to lock down a team that could and make sure we can provide that team, which means that sometimes that there's some bench costs, in between assignments or projects, right? The art of trying to have a team trained and then able to go, stand up a data center and then also have the discipline of like, oh, there's a really sweet interiors project over here and we have some horsepower here not being used. Let's take it and put it over there. And then next, a data center pops up. You're like, well, shit, now we can't.
Yeah, it's tough.
So that discipline was...
Especially when the whole market was commoditizing the GCs too, because I was at a GC when I was at Nova Mission Critical with a lot of the guys that we work with now, Nathan, Jesse, all those guys, Anthony. So we kind of competed against each other at the same time. I didn't run into orbit with you though, I don't think. Did you know who we were?
No, I didn't.
We were a small out-of-town shop from New York. I doubt that you guys knew, but we were building in Chicago.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, we did... I'm not sure if I'm allowed to talk about it on this thing, but there was 2 programs that we were doing there.
Yeah, I'm also not sure what stuff I'm allowed to say. We're going to have to edit this thing and look.
Well, a couple people. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think those days are kind of over too. I mean, there's things that people talk about in NDA from, strategic perspective, but everyone knows who's building what. We used to code name the shit out of everything, Project Dolphin or something. And people we get it, you know? I mean, there's only so much you could hide that stuff into until the whole market knows about it. But, how long, what was the growth iteration for you from VP to EVP?
That might have been that was probably the quickest turnaround. That might have been like a year and a half. And I think what that was is realizing that we needed to create, with the growth, we needed to create some additional levels.
Yeah.
Right. Because you have some organizations, I'll draw a parallel to just at the like PM level, right? Where you have some organizations that have a PM1, PM2, PM3, right?
Yeah. Because that's how deep they are.
Right. And, we hadn't gotten to that level. So we had a thick crust. We were getting to the point where we were having a thick crust at the top, and we needed to create some additional layers because we had some others coming up as well. And then we had, certain equity bands within the organization that we needed to show some separation through.
So I know that you had the plan. So when you decided that you were going to leave where you were at, you weren't really sure what you were going to do yet. You were literally going to go sit on the golf course for months and chill out and go fishing or whatever you were doing. And that didn't last very long. So, but the thing is it seemed like by the time I talked to you, you're like, I think I'm going to go, I want to just build data centers is what you said. Right. And I was like, how ironic, right? That's all I want to build. Right. So we started talking, what would be the major, because you were a deer in the headlights for the first few months. I kind of gave you all the leeway you wanted and just stayed out of your way, watching you walk around. Like you went from, you knew all of your shit on lockdown at a place that you owned for 18 years to now you were the janitor again, right? Yeah. Literally, right?
Yeah,
so
we had nothing.
That's startup shit, right? And I tried to, do you feel like I told you enough in advance? Like, hey man, it's like, virginity amongst hoes, right? I mean, like we're all equals here. We all are hunting. We're all in sales. It turns out we're also all in operations and we're all in execution. So, in that startup mentality, especially in this type of environment where it's a bloodbath because procurement teams and people that make purchasing decisions are armed to the freaking teeth. And, there's just a lot of opportunities that like the life expectancy of a deal. It's like you put it on the conveyor belt back in the olden days and you had 90 days plus to swing at that and prepare for that deal. You knew it was coming in a quarter or two from now. Mm-hmm. Now that deal is out and it's off the market in less than 30 days, right?
Well, I would say we know of a deal and it might be 12 months that we know of something. And it's just until it actually becomes real, then then it's when boom.
It hits.
Yes.
Fast.
So you have to be connected and knowing every move that deal is going through its life cycle before it actually
it's not just that deal. Everybody has a deal. So you are investing into everybody because it's not if, it's just when that other group has a deal, right? And it could pop up like popcorn, like I said, right? Like that deal with that investment and that relationship that you just invested into could be tomorrow or next month or next year. But because you don't know, you got to be ready for everything. So you're investing into all of those relationships for real, right? I mean, like you're constantly never ending on the way that we invest into relationships in this industry. I don't think it's like that in other industries. Do you agree?
No, not in the way that we're connected with the actual, like the decision makers, it's the owners of the products, right? Whether it's, I don't want to say anybody's names but we're connected directly with the groups where it's usually there's like brokers involved or somebody else that, you're going to be kind of staying connected with and working that relationship angle. I don't really see that side of it in our space as much.
I think that, there's just so many, like they're not pocketed into one market, right? They're like, hey, well, I'm going to be doing something here in Texas. I'm going to do something in Virginia. I'm going to do something in,
right.
And in California, you can you bid on one of them? Because we know you don't have a team for all of them, right? It's just, there seems to be so much out there now to kind of pick through. You came over and I told you it's going to be a piece of cake.
Pretty
Company
much.
will just stand itself up.
Pretty much.
Sucker.
Yeah.
How'd that work out?
I think we see how it worked out.
You needed to grind and build it all up. You were a spoiled little bitch at that big company where you had back where I came from, I had 14 butlers and an assistant that did that shit for me. I'm like, not here, bitch. You're in the foxhole with us. But I mean, like, talk me through what's it been like building your own general contracting company now that you've learned. Look, because to wrap up the story for those that are listening, you can I think that there's a lot of people that think like, man, I got to get my kids in college or they're not going to get a job. And if they don't get a good job, then they're not going to make good money. And if they don't make good money, then they're not going to be happy. Or flip that model the other way around. If I go to, all those things, then that's the goalpost for happiness. And the reality is everybody's built differently, right? And some people need to go to college, right? Either because they're highly intellectual and they need to go be challenged and stimulated because that's where they're challenged the best. And then you have some people that are really smart and they're bored as hell in a school. Like I never really saw grades as a reflection of intelligence, more of how interested you were in something, because everybody's smart at some shit. Mm-hmm. It's just they get bored at things that they don't give a shit about. And some people don't want to sit in a class for analyzation and interpretation of American English literature. They'd rather be sitting down there and doing what you were doing, which was reading one-liners, blueprints. And I think that it's okay. It's safe. We live in a state in which if they were to go to school today and start learning a piece of technology, by the time they graduated, there's a good chance that technology would be obsolete anyway, because that's how crazy the world is that we're in. I have 2 in college right now, and I'm going to let them do whatever the hell they want to. But I also am I'm quick to encourage them to do what they want to do, and that is be challenged. Go do something that's fulfilling to you. You were able to go from assistant superintendent job all the way up to an executive vice president role. And you ran everything in the middle of that over the course of an 18+ year career. And then you took all of that knowledge with you and those relationships, which are golden. And the relationships that you have or that you earn along your career is almost as important as the knowledge, subject matter that you learned throughout your career as well. Wow. Right. So now you were able to package up that, because it's a really hard club to get into in Chicago. Right. So you got all that knowledge from the field all the way into the office, and then at the executive level, and you went to Silver Spoon School too. They teach you how to
charm school
properly. Yeah. I got you. Yeah. But that's important, right? And that's what everybody that's listening. I mean, they could be at a different altitude and airspeed right now in their own career and just not sure where to go. And I'm like, you can go anywhere, really. If you want to be on the build side, there's space for you, but your kids can literally do anything too, because this industry is starving for people, right? So now you did all those things and you said, hey man, I think I want to go be an entrepreneur one day. Because you, in all fairness, when you first called me, I thought you were going to go work for an operator. Remember, I was like, sure. Yeah. I got like 3 different buddies that are like, oh, there's the operators right now are starving for leaders too, right? They need, and you're like, hey, dipshit. Remember that? Yeah. I remember where I was too. I was in California, I think it's something, and you're like, no, man, let's talk. And I was like, okay, cool. And I was like, I love the startup life. Okay. I love the kinetic, the ballistic chaos that comes with that, because we are an agent of our own reality in a startup, right? We're not beholden to some broken process that we're like, oh, it sucks, but it's kind of an institution now. You're not going to change that. Right. Fuck that. This construct doesn't exist here. We're like, I remember when we were at Nova Mission Critical, Mike Maldari, who's now at 1547, I remember when he came over, he came from Cisco or something, and he was doing something. I go, what are you doing? He's like, well, I'm trying to make sure it stays within this. And I go, no, dude, I didn't hire you to play within that construct. Here's your hammer. Go break that and start over. Like, because that's the way we used to always do it, is not a really good excuse for shit. And I remember asking him, like, how would you like to come be a part of the Wild Wild West, where you get to really build? Like, if you don't like it, good. You're the one that built it. Right. Yeah. So you don't get to bitch and moan about it. You don't have bad days, because if you don't like it, then you're unhappy with what you built, right?
You don't have cool, exciting projects. That's because of you. You go get them.
100%. Yeah. But I also said, I'm like, look, fine, start your GC. Do it with us. At least we have a brand that you could do it up and under, right? So at least you have instant credibility day one with things, because some of us have built some shit before and we have a little credibility. You have a marketing arm that could help support your growth. You have a little bit of an omnipresence, and we'll give you all the resources you need to grow that shit. It's just, it was really the first time I think that you had to do it all on your own. Would you agree?
Yeah.
All right. So walk us through the entrepreneur journey for you, and make sure you speak into the microphone.
I don't know where to start. It was
start with whatever your therapist told you to start from. So both of them. It should be hard.
Yeah, it's when I say it's probably one of the most humbling things to go through. Especially coming from the background that I had, where like a lot of things were in place and stood up, and I was relying on those things. And now coming in, just taking certain things for granted. That like
that's it.
something else was going to be there. There was already going to be a backstop,
or another person that could take that on, or the cycles that were here. Yeah. You have that.
And it taught me a little even about myself, about just some patience with other people as well. I'm relying on people.
Don't you look at me when you talk like that?
Why could you do this, you dummy? What the heck?
Little bitch.
So
you learn a lot about each other when you're doing that.
That's taught me a lot. It's not everybody speaks the same language that I speak, and I'm used to an industry.
You mean like with your lisp or with...
Yeah, exactly. So it was just even the way that we'll communicate via email and just our technical writing skills. I've worked with the same group of people in the same ecosystem, and predominantly in Chicago, and we all communicate with each other a certain way there, and we all read between the lines a certain way there, and that's just
very
the way
passive aggressive.
Yeah, you get it right. There it is. Yeah. So that's completely different here, and so I'm like catching the tone of
very direct
just this way that I engage, or the way that I'm like, reaching out, and just even the way I'm writing emails to certain people and stuff. It's just like,
you're reinventing yourself
a little bit. Yeah, for sure. And
you have to.
A lot of it's been too, just like learning things that I didn't even think I was capable of doing, because I've just relied on someone else that maybe filled that role for so long.
Or you just haven't done it for so long.
Or I haven't had to do it, and I've had to like retrain myself to do some things. And that's been fun and exciting. That stuff is that I will like stay up late at night for, and not be like complaining that I'm saying, like, I enjoy that.
Yeah, you put out some really, look, man, for what it's worth, I've got to see what you create. And I didn't know you had it in you either. You know what I'm saying? But you can tell that when it's yours, you take a lot of ownership in it, right? That's what you do as an entrepreneur. It's like, no, it's no one else's problem to fix but mine. And you want it to be like, only you know what you want from your shit, because whatever it is that we're doing, although we're all contributing to it, it's a direct reflection of you and your own personal standards. So we have to, like, what do you think your biggest challenge has been?
Wow. What's my biggest challenge?
Well, it doesn't have to be like it could be what has been the greatest challenge that you've had through the process then? How about this?
I mean,
picking up new trades and markets that you don't do as much work in, maybe, or having to go reinvent,
No, just I would say, and I think you would agree, is just responding to, a very complicated RFP.
Yeah.
Have all that support material that goes along with it. Like a schedule, I give you the schedule and the buyout and the price and everything and all the detail behind it that can convince anybody that I know the job.
Your first RFP out of the gate that you had to respond to was probably for one of the more sophisticated types of people that talk about armed to the teeth, right? It's not like you were just running off a regular RFP. You had a person that speaks both sides of the language of the industry, forwards and backwards. And he'll make the buffalo on a nickel squeal. That's how tight he is when it comes to budgets and stuff like that. And that's your first one out of the gate that you had to really chase down. And I could see, there was a lot of, you were white knuckling that bitch, you know what I'm saying? Like through the last week, because you were so stressed and making sure that you had all that stuff right. But rightfully so. If you weren't, I would have probably lost confidence in you, right? That pressure that you were imposing on yourself is absolutely what gave me comfort, because somebody has to do it. Someone has to care that much about every attention to detail. And it sure as shit shouldn't be me, right? It should be the president of that company that's trying to make sure that whatever they're doing, they can stand behind every word that's on that paper. Yep. And you used to have an army that could do that for you. Now you had an army of one, that's you and Mike, right? And then we have a resource team, but they're like,
it was their first time going through this too.
On the GC side, for sure, right? Look, when I was having Joe work templates for me for certain things, I could take him out of commission for a month for some of that stuff. That stuff takes a long time. But the reason it was the perfect one for you, because they're not going to get much more complicated technically than that one, right?
Yeah.
And I think that they'll, not that they're ever easy, but those are the harder ones to get. Plus, the first one through the wall is always the bloodiest, right? So like creating an initial template, or you have to always try to stabilize before you can standardize, before you can optimize, right? And for you were trying to do it all at once. And did you feel me like keeping, like, I'm pretty much, I could be involved with people's shit as much as I have to be, but for your shit, I was watching in orbit more, because I was like, I don't know if me
It was probably for the better.
Yeah. I didn't want you to. I saw you like Steve Buscemi with that lipstick hit list, putting your lipstick on one day, my name on that list. I didn't need to be on your list again. But I think the biggest challenge probably would have been adjusting and adapting to the dynamics of a startup, right? And we don't run it like a GC. I mean, we are a GC, but we have other brands too. I mean, we have other businesses that we do too, right? So and each of those are for profit, right? So like we have a lot of things that matter, not just when you're at a GC where you came from, the primary line of business you used to generate revenue was just that one thing. And here that's one thing of things that we do. Now that one thing will not most likely, but I think you'll demonstrate that it'll become the lion's share of the top line that we ever do, right? And I think we give you a pretty great advantage by having access to an unlimited bench of talent that Jesse's company, which is your counterpart, right? So you're a president and Jesse's a president, and Jesse has our construction management, project management, owner's rep staff, and you have a GC that turns out needs a lot of really strong, talented people. At any time, you don't have that problem where you're like, hey, I have a bench of people that are in a holding pattern waiting for the next construction project for a data center. You could just pull headline privileges from Jesse's top brass at any time you want to and know that you could patch together. That's unlike any other GC where you have unlimited access to A teams and B teams because those people are coming in and out of construction management, project management roles as individual contributors, as owners reps on the enterprise end user, on the large hyperscale side, as well as the large wholesale operators that are servicing them.
Right.
So you have proficiency nonstop because all we do is build data centers. Do you feel that was an advantage?
Oh yeah, that was probably one of my biggest disadvantages before. Now it's
access to unlimited labor.
Yeah, to have that is a huge benefit.
What else do you think that you have, and what have you learned from this whole process? Was it what you thought it was going to be?
No, not at all.
Did you enjoy it as much as you thought you would?
There's moments where I enjoyed it more.
Okay. You're not the same person you are than when we first clicked onto this. I mean, you have to feel that, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
What are some of the biggest differences for you that you had to adjust to? And it doesn't necessarily have to be a negative one. I try to focus on the positive, in fact.
Yeah, I would say there was probably, coming into the space and doing this, there was probably some insecurities at first, so I'd say the confidence that I've maybe reestablished in myself, that I don't know if I didn't have the confidence because I wouldn't be here, but there were definitely some things I was probably insecure about because I just didn't know.
Sure.
And that's probably one of the biggest things for me is like, I feel like I need to know.
Do you feel like you're getting more exposure to the holistic, bigger picture?
Yeah.
In what way?
Just more engagement time, right? I mean,
do you understand the product more that you're building versus, because you spent 18 years viewing it from the optics, the aperture that you viewed everything through was through a contractor, not trivializing the businessman you were where you were. Now you're looking at, well, why do investors invest in this vertical in the first place, right? What's the difference? I mean, understanding, if we're building for a large wholesale operator, understanding that when they sign a lease, that's like one of 5 checkboxes that the enterprise end users going through that triggers something that's major for us, right? But you understand do you think you understand the industry more?
Yeah, I would say that I had a pretty good understanding of the industry. Like, I don't know if
I'm joking.
Yeah, it wasn't that. It was understanding our industry, like the company as a whole is Overwatch and their tentacles, of everything that they're getting into. So that was, that's what I thought you were asking, and that's what I say. Yes, I understand that a little bit more.
I was trying to help educate you on the ecosystem as a whole, and how I always, when I would whiteboard things to people, I'd just draw a big money sign on the top left-hand side of the whiteboard, and then I would have the ripple effect for everything as it unfolds so that people can understand where they sit in the ecosystem and how that is relative in distance to where the money's at, because that's where the decisions are made, right? So you can understand, not to commoditize some of these elements of the delivery model, but there are some that do get commoditized pretty easily. Don't you agree?
Yeah.
And I think it was important to not be on the tactical side, but to stay pretty close to the strategic side. So we had influence over the way that things maybe never being purchased, but in the direction that things were moving in the delivery of the model. Do you agree?
Yeah.
What else were you learning? Any of that? Or I mean, anything in general about the industry that you think you were picking up in addition to that on the business side, because you became an entrepreneur where we're standing up, tools for the first time as needed?
I don't know, man. You're really putting the screws to me on this one.
Good. Going back, you're like, I should have just stayed where I was. I could have just, all the shit, the soup was done cooking. I just showed up there, shit was done.
Should have missed my flight.
Well, I think you almost did, didn't you? Or that you got delayed?
It was just delayed, yeah.
All right. So what else do you want? I mean, you and I met on I remember the first time I talked to you. Do you?
Yeah.
I didn't even take that call very serious, I don't think.
No, you didn't. Because you accidentally like turned on the FaceTime and you're like, oh
driving
shit,
down
you're
the road,
driving, your hair's
20.
all like floated, you're wearing some like silly flower shirt or flower pants or something like.
I live an alternative lifestyle.
I'm like,
this is Austin, Texas.
Guy? You didn't even show up to our interview.
You had Jesse and Timmy and those guys, but I'll tell you, like, I don't think I heard of you guys that much. And I remember Jesse Sargent came to me and goes, hey man, we want to use this company on this project. And I was like, And I haven't been really in the business of overriding Jesse on those types of decisions for a while, because if I hold you accountable to a schedule and a budget, it's only fair that I let him pick the team, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember him coming to me one day, and you could tell that he wasn't sure how to approach me, so he was planting seeds and cultivating over time that he was going to pivot off of the GC that I was like, just go with this one. No one gets fired for going that direction. And I talked to you guys on the phone, and I think that you guys were giving me your resume and the data centers that you were building back in those days. I was like, those ones don't even exist anymore, right? And they were all retail anyway. So you're
kind of being a dick too.
I wasn't trying to. You just were sensitive, right? And I just remember thinking, I go, it's not like you guys hadn't seen the ball since kickoff. It's just that you guys weren't at that volume and velocity that, I mean, where Jesse and I were coming from, we had a gun to our head, and we were deploying, a couple $1 million a day type of thing, which may not sound like a lot now, but for us, that was a lot, right? And if you messed up, it wasn't a budget, it was one of us gets fired type of shit, right? Yep. So we just had to take it a little bit more personal. And I remember Jesse coming to me and going, hey, I'm going to go with this dark horse. And Tim Tribble was a big factor for that. If he's at a line now, right? And yep. Timmy used to be an estimator, right? So that guy could count pennies and screws, right? And he was as subtle as a sack of hammers, right? But he ended up turning into such a nice guy, and he's mentored and developed. I mean, I give him a lot of credit for some of the guys on my team that he's helped build over the time, and he's just a really good dude. But I remember Tim, who I don't know if I've ever heard him say anything favorable about anybody, was like, these guys are legit. These are the real deal. And I was like, okay. And I remember purposely pulling Jesse to the side. I go, hey, listen, bro, I love you. And I'm going to let you pick who you want to. But if these guys mess it up, it's your nuts. I'm going to smush them. Right. And he's like, bro, I got you. You know how he is. Yeah. And, we spent time, getting to know you through a very complicated program. And I don't think anybody else would have been successful in that program except for you guys. Right. So I think that was one of the things that made it really easy for when you and I started having this conversation. Do I want to be back in the foxhole with you as a partner? Because you are, you're a partner, but you're a part of the grown-up community here, which means you, Jesse, the founders, and you and Carly are all shareholders, right? And you guys are partners of this business. You're going to have stake to where we're all in this together. We ride or die together. And I just remember thinking, can I trust this person? And we kind of did. We already put our stuff on the line for you once before. And I don't think I was ever surprised I was always expecting something negative in terms of, you know what I'm
there
saying?
It is.
I was like, I knew these sons of bitches were going to change order me something, but like everything was like, no, we'll work through it with you guys, and I was a little bit slow to probably invest into that relationship with you. I think it was the first time we went out on the lake or something like that. And I was like, all right, I could be friends with this guy now. But now watching it go fast forward and come full circle, like watching you reinvent yourself, I've watched you struggle, right? I've watched you define what a standard looks like, and I've watched you engage with others. And sometimes it requires healthy conflict. And it, not that you have to be abrasive, but you will be if necessary to get the standard you want for whatever it is that you need. And that's what you need to be a strong leader, to have a strong business partner. And you coming over here, standing up this general contracting side for us is something that I think all of us as partners had a lot of confidence in, because we got to see you kind of operate in less than ideal circumstances and situations in the past project that we got to do with you, right? So I think that what you brought was a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge, and what you had to gain, which no one could give you, was confidence in yourself. My job is to try to inspire you to be a better version of yourself every day so that you could grow confidence in yourself to thrive even when you're on an island by yourself, right? Do you feel like you were getting those things to be able to build your product? Because you've already had success on the GC side with us, and I think it's very possible that we'll probably do more this quarter than we did all of last year, and last year was a record for us, right? That's the type of projection that we have, because the momentum that you're building around yourself while simultaneously reinventing yourself. Do you feel good about it?
Yeah. It's a lot. Giddy up, right?
It shouldn't be. I mean, if it was easy, everybody would do it.
Yeah.
That's
it's
why
fun,
it should be hard.
Like, if I'm not doing something like this, I'm bored, and that's the last thing this world needs is me out there bored.
Bored gingers. Nobody has room for that. No one has time for those people.
Gingers.
Well, listen, we walked through a lot, right? And this is a fast one.
Mm-hmm.
But what else do you want people to know about you or your general contracting business? Because it is yours, right? We're a holding company that has the ability to help stand up other vertically integrated groups that want to grow horizontally and vertically with us. And you're like, I'm going to build a GC, and I'm like, we want to build it with you. Let us help you spearhead that, right? So what do you want people to know about your GC?
Yeah, really, it's yes, it's me, but it's us, and it's GC. But if those that are out there looking for like good partners, people that are going to do what they say they're going to do, that are going to make sure that they have all the information that they need to have to make those informed decisions through the evolution of their projects, and knowing that they're getting the best quality out there, and one, just creating an experience, a project experience that is not stressful for them, and make us be their easy button. That's what we're here, and that's the way that I want to disrupt the market. So,
do you have any opportunities available to you right now for people on your team?
Yeah, we've got, that's one of the benefits of coming into a firm. Even when I came into my previous firm, it was a smaller firm on its way up. We're here in our infancy stage, and, we're going to go from 0 to 100 fast, a lot faster than, previously done. So
you have room for at least a VP or two. You have some PMs you're looking for right now.
Yeah.
You have open space.
Yes, I'm definitely looking for those. I've got, 5, 10, even 0 years of general contracting experience. There's a variety of roles, all roles from at the ground to right next to me, basically.
How do they find you? Just Ginger at weareoverwatch.com? Bald at weareoverwatch.com.
Those that follow my OnlyFans will get it.
Okay. Yeah. So how do people reach you? LinkedIn?
LinkedIn. The website, I think we have a good link tree on our website where they can reach out to us through there.
This will hit the street probably for PTC too. So when we're at PTC, hopefully maybe this is my favorite part of the year, is the first quarter, because that's when everyone's looking to make their changes, right? They're like, okay, I just took some time off. I was reflecting with the family. I realized that, the juice isn't worth the squeeze maybe, or there's just not enough room for growth, or they promised me this again and I didn't get it. And, everyone's typically waiting for the bonuses to roll around the end of January, February, March, and then they pop smoke, right? So now's the time, right? So you'll be at PTC if there's some people that you could find that if they hear this and they're just hungry to reinvent themselves and they want to go there. This is entrepreneur shit. This is not like institutionalized business. This is Wild West is what we're doing. And you have to really, really enjoy going into an environment where it's never the same one day after the other.
Yeah, and they can't be scared of a little hard work either.
Yeah. Everyone has to do their own. You were doing your own proposals till 1:00 in the morning and stuff like that, right?
Yep.
Weekends too. What else do you want them to know about you?
That's all I got, Kirk. I mean, it's not that deep.
I could tell, man. This is, you don't want to tell them about your hair product or anything like that you use? No? All right. Well, listen, man, thanks for coming in and thanks for talking about this part, because it is one, people are going to be like, oh shit, Kirk's self-serving. He's putting his own business unit presidents online. And and letting them like promote their business and but really I'm trying to outline the journey of how someone goes from a horse guy in Florida. I won't tell anybody.
Yeah.
To
sheep guy in Texas.
Yeah. There you go. But how do you go? And like a lot of us in my generation now have kids that are old enough, and we're trying to figure out how to coach and mentor these people because it ain't what it used to be. Like everyone used to be like, look, I don't know what to do. I'll go lay up in college. Never go wrong by doing that. But the reality is you may not need to. You made a great living. You had a very rewarding career where you're at. Probably made more money than sense, more than you deserve. But and now here you are starting your own business, right? So I hope that what people can take away from this isn't like this self-serving promotion for Overwatch, but more of you could do anything in this industry. Data centers, I mean, we're getting ready to start a data center gold rush, right? The next 3 years will have explosive growth and opportunity. And it doesn't matter if you've been in this industry for never or 5 years or 10. If you want to reinvent yourself, there's an opportunity to do it as a builder. Don't you agree?
Yeah, 100%.
All right. Well, I hope that people follow you on LinkedIn and they know how to reach you. How do you spell your last name on it?
Daly.
There you go. So Rob Daly on LinkedIn, hit him up on his social media and reach out. Come find a job. We're hiring right now. We need you.
Yeah, looking for a fun place, energetic, with opportunities.
You got it, man. Well, thanks for coming in. It's good seeing you, buddy.
You too, brother.
All right, man.